So 50% of advisors in the industry are going to be replaced in the next decade, not by AI, but by other advisors who figured out how to use it. Today, we're not talking about the hype or the fear. We're talking about what's actually happening, what we're actually doing with it, and what it means if you're trying to stay ahead.
The From Busy to Rich podcast helps financial advisors by providing strategies and insights that will not only change your life, but practice.
I'm Justin Lake, and with me always is your host, Wes Young. We're financial advisors in the industry, but also spend a lot of time coaching other advisors based on the approach and process that we made and refined over time and become very successful for us. And today we're going to be spending a little bit of time discussing the elephant in the room that seems to be AI, but not focused on the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI itself, but instead, how is it changing the way that we're doing things? And here's why the conversation can't wait. 6 months ago, most advisors thought AI was a chatbot that writes emails. Today, it's rewriting how practices operate. And Wes, I know this couldn't be more timely because you just spent months going from exactly what we were just talking about to writing code in a fraction of time. So talk a little bit about that. Why is that so relevant right now? And then I would love to hear, what are your thoughts on just the pace of change for people who aren't at that point yet?
I love this topic. So the primary thing that I always think of first is when it comes to how we're using it. And if there is a process or a system or a person that can make things faster, more profitable, and increase my own enjoyment and quality of life, I want to use it. So we're always trying new things, trying stuff on. With AI, where we were at from a practice standpoint is I say, hey, we've got a lot of things that require a lot of human intervention, a lot of movement of data, curation of data, framing of that, and we're doing a lot of double entry. Advisors, the longer you're in the business, you tend to stack this system, then you got this system over here that you're using, or this tool, and so it can become a little bit. Again, we use the word sophisticated confusion, right? Where there's just a lot that has to be done. The volume of workload increases on menial tasks. So what we do with this right now, and there's a lot of application that I want to go through. One specific one is goes back to our purpose. So we are curators of human flourishing. That is what we do. So every time we are with a client, what I care about is deeply understanding what is their story. Like, where are they? What future lights them up? What are they excited about? What is it that they really want to make sure is they're moving towards? Where are they starting from? Where are they at today? Because between those two, that great Stephen Pressfield quote, "Most of us have two lives," is so true. The life that we live and the unlived life within us. Between those two stands resistance. So I want to have a framework of that. I also want to understand how did you get here? How'd you come? What's the totality of your story? And then what are the areas of planning we specialize in that may be most useful to what you're trying to accomplish? So here's what used to happen is the old days, and the old days were like 6 months ago. We would create what we called a master plan, which meant, and it's an internal document, right? So where we would write out a bit of the client's story, bit of what lights them up, and again, it's whoever's doing it. Like if if it's me or you or Daniel, we're writing out what we believe lights this client up and something about the story. Then what we would do is we'd say, okay, in all the areas of the big pillars that we operate in, what matters to that story? What should we be doing to optimize income? What should we be doing to accelerate business value? What should we be doing to align core capital? What should we be doing to enrich family legacy? So and I have just been doing this for a long time. I got all these filters in my head to where I could say, oh, well, of all the thousands of ideas that exist, probably these three are really useful. And we should eventually talk about this. And we should eventually talk about this. But it is a very manual process to be able to see all that. So what we have transitioned to is we now have a AI tool that creates the executive summary to where I can take and I can speak to it. I can tell the client story. I can also use things like the notes from Zox And again, Zox is the AI note taking assistant that's sits in all our meetings. I can put in financial outputs. So, like if we frame them up in our planning software, planning chapter, or if you're using e-money or a spreadsheet, whatever you're using, again, wouldn't recommend a spreadsheet, but it takes all that and it puts it in the format that curates it into the format that we need. The difference in time is that it used to take, especially the first time you're doing one, at least an hour, maybe more, to assemble this. Now, most days, again, it is AI, so we're still getting better at it. But most days, it's about 15 minutes. And keep in mind, if we have 100 clients, that's a lot of extra time that you either give away or get back. And it also gives your energy better for the more creative work, not necessarily cobbling together administrative information, because it does the cobbling for you. Other side benefit, Justin, is like we have paraplanners, project managers that are, say, newer to the business. So they don't have all the reps that we have with all the iterations of what may apply for a client. So while all that stuff lived in my head before, we built these filters that you can store in the brain of the AI to say, hey, look, when you see this, these are the client type, here's the outputs that generally are going to apply for them, and specific to tax or specific to their how they're aligning their core capital or to their business growth or to enriching their family legacy. So it's what they get, instead of them going, well, I guess I can guess at what may apply to this client and be wrong and us have to fix it. It's us, it's our mind, our brain that's in there that sifts through that for them. And they get to see that. And what they notice is they're like, hey, I didn't have to spend a bunch of time cobbling together information, guessing at what may apply, missing most of it, and probably adding stuff that's wrong. I got to see what applied in this client, and it was fast. And they begin to notice the pattern. And we teach the patterns in our organization. So it's like, hey, there's, Tony Robbins does a great job explaining it. Pattern recognition, pattern application, and pattern creation. Well, pattern recognition is that thing of, there were patterns out there that if you knew about them and applied them would make your life better and make you better at life. And so we want the people working in our organization that are newer or even that are older, they're looking for, what is the pattern? When someone looks like this, what are the things we typically use here? Now the AI checks them, right? It's going to make sure it's right. And it's pushing it through. So that's been immensely valuable. Let's stop and ask if you have any feedback or questions around that.
I've loved it to see the evolution and going back again to the speed. It's amazing how fast things have gone and continue to go as far as the new development. And I think it'd be remiss at this point in our conversation to just not at least acknowledge that there's a ton of noise and hype out there. Everything from a utopian society to doom and gloom. And I don't think that that's what our intent is and focus here. And what we're going to be talking about is we're not going to tell you what AI could do. We're going to talk about what are we doing in our practice right now, this week, some of the things that Wes already mentioned, some others we'll dive into, but also what are we seeing? Because here's the reality. Your clients, if you're an advisor or an entrepreneur doing some service or other related business, they're already using AI. They're second guessing your advice. And the question is whether you're using it to stay 3 steps ahead or if you're starting to fall behind. And so in your words, what are you seeing in experience? What are you seeing from an expectation shift, both from clients and I guess from advisors, because those are clients as well that we serve?
Well, I think there's one universal that exists out there is everybody wants their life to be better. Everybody. Now, what does that mean? Because better to one person may be slightly different than another just based on how they're wired. No one wants their life to get worse. And so and worse is a very complex thing to explain. So with advisors, I would say that are hesitant or angry, even that they're like, well, AI and I don't want to look. The bigger question is like, how can I use this to make life better? I think is the appropriate question. Will it be used in ways that you don't like, that you would drone on and talk about? I'm sure that happens. That happens with everything, every single thing that's ever invented or created. But but it's also going to make things immensely better in a lot of areas in your ability to deliver value because we're ultimately paid for that. And this is where I think it gets a little interesting is advisors or advisor staff that they have. There are jobs that this will do, and it will do it better than the person would do it. And people get into places where they attach their identity to the rhythm that they follow. They a lot of times people have the high craving. There's like the 6 human needs. One of them is certainty. They like certainty. They like knowing this will be the same. I can count on it. I can rely on it. Well, when you start hearing people talk about, wow, this can do this, and part of the this is a thing you do, it becomes a should I be worried? Don't be worried. Just be worried if you're unwilling to embrace AI and how you can do a better thing. If this thing can do it better, let the thing do it, and let's focus on something else. Um, with the clients, it's the same. I think mixed bag. You got some clients that are you always have the inventors, early adopters, then you have the late majority, then you have the I mean the early majority, then late majority, then laggards. Laggards, your life's just always going to be rough, man, especially at a time like this because the pace of change is so fast. It's always been bad because things will change. Just at what pace do they change? So when the rapid pace of change comes like this, laggards because they don't learn, they won't get on the bus, they won't like at least try it on, see how it can work. They're going to suffer and struggle. They're already suffering and struggling just because the stories they're telling themselves, even if they haven't changed anything about their day-to-day life. So the where we're seeing with AI, it's just my general, I think we're in a somewhere between early and late majority phase, where it's the majority of the bell curve. I think we've got a lot of people out there that are using AI, and that's a loose term. There are levels to this game for sure. Some are really using it like Google. Or some of them are using it to, help them with their email that they are going to send. That they could send themselves. They're like, it'll take me 15 minutes to really craft it. I could just use AI and I can read over it. I can change a couple things. It's better. And then some of them are using it for efficiencies. Like, how do I cut down on the duplication of work? How do I make sure that that I'm ahead and doing things as quickly as possible that don't require my touch, my human intervention. So I think what you're always going to have is this has been through time. Anytime change has happened, when the threshing machine was invented back in England, there was like riots and chaos because people were like they're taking their jobs and they were going to kill the people that were manufacturing them. So people in general resist change. They typically defend their normal. I think the deeper thing, man, is like the identity side of things. So, there is a fundamental human need for significance. And that I think is probably the most threatened if you don't have the right mindset around this, because it can do AI, if AI can do what you do faster and cheaper, what makes you special, right? What are you meaningful? Because one of the fundamental one of the macronutrients of happiness is meaning, right? It's enjoyment, satisfaction, meaning. Meaning is about faith, family, friends, and worth that matters to others. So we have to have a belief that we have a better future than we have a present, something we're working towards. We have to have a thing we're putting our energy into that actually matters to others and to the people in our lives. So I think in the dark road people can go down is like this idea of I resist, I resist, I resist. They don't learn the new thing. Like, I mean, self-driving cars are a good example. This is like, if your meaning's tied to being an Uber driver, one day you will not have a job unless you figure out something new to do. And so advisors, I don't know what it's going to replace in us, but it doesn't matter. We'll just continue to go, okay, how do I add value with what I do now? So I think if you're not on that, because the guys is coming anyway, you might as well enjoy the ride. We are on the bus. And so you gotta either decide I'm going to enjoy it or I'm going to gripe and cry and suffer along the way.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to From Busy to Rich. If you're listening and something sparks a question or you just want to explore these ideas further, visit us at wesyounglive.com or email us at info@wesyounglive.com. You'll find free resources, tools, and ways to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's the tool that you'll either continue to trip over and potentially truly be replaced by, or it's the thing that's like rocket fuel and gets you to the next level. Like it absolutely can help you. It's a big thing is a two-person shop can now operate like a 20-person firm. And that's not a prediction you're already talking about. It's already happening. I think this would be a great place to just plug in for people that maybe don't have that natural proclivity to lean that way, to talk a little bit about your framework and like normalize the new and what we've talked about before, but how that helps to connect to ambition, persistence, and staying ahead of that curve.
Look, I wrote Beautiful Savage. I mean, it's like a fundamental that a beautiful savage has a big ambition, a grateful condition, and a savage persistence to dance with the resistance between the life they're living and the life within them. So the beautiful part is that when you can get that right, when you can be a person that's like, okay, I've got an idea of where I think I want to go, what lights me up, what I'm excited about, and I'm grateful. Like we all have things in our life we once prayed for, and so it's like, what am I grateful for that's happened in my life to this point? If I was to go back and tell the 10-year younger version of Wes all the things that were going on, would he be happy? And so with that as kind of the state, because you have to be in the right state in order to even be able to wrestle with your ambition, to be able to bring to have the savage persistence that you need to dance with the resistance, because resistance isn't bad. It's just what is going to be there that's in between you and can either assist you or prevent you from getting to the future that you want most. So with AI, it becomes a accelerant to growth and contribution, or it becomes a thing that you ignore until you're so far behind the curve that you have people that are like people that are just not even paying attention, that you're like, well, how are you getting all this done so quickly? How are you managing to accomplish this? Why does he feel clunky to work with? Well, because he doesn't embrace new. So you have to have it scheduled in your calendar like anything else. It's just hey, how do I get good? How do I get good at this? Well, you get good by using it, and you're going to feel clunky, and you're going to be like, I don't know. The good news is you can keep asking AI, how do I get better at you? What else can you do that I don't know about? Because it's very good in that. And there's a bunch of great podcasts out there on AI that you can listen to. AI Updates, one of them, where you just learn what is out there that I need to know exists, because one day I might want to use it. And then the people you have around you matter. If you're not around people that, one, are on board with where you're going, like say, hey guys, this is where we're going to try and go. This is, we want things to be better. We think better's here. This is what it would look like. Here's where we are. We can't keep doing what we're doing and getting where we want to go at the pace we want to get there. Here is a thing, a tool, a system, a process, whatever it might be. In this case, AI, that we don't know how we're going to use it. We don't know how all it's going to play out, but we got to be trying it on and ask yourself the question, what am I thinking about how I approach this meeting? Is there a way I could use AI for this meeting? You can go into AI, tell it, hey, I prepare for meetings like this. Here's all the documents I need to get. Here's the outputs I create using these other tools. And you put the websites of those tools in there. And it feels like a very manual process. Can you give me ways that I can utilize AI to automate this, or even jump over that tool I was using and just internalize it here? And it's amazing. That's that what it'll come back with. But it is all about the prompt. It's all about asking the right questions and just strategically thinking, like, what in your day? Yes, if you like, we should do this. We should do this at the end of the day, because we've been busy day, lots of teaching today and client meetings. And then there's a little stuff that emerges in between. If we just told it, hey, here's all the stuff I did today. Here's the stuff that lit me up. Here's the stuff I felt great about. Here's the stuff that drained me. How can AI help with that? and just let it tell you, because there's probably some solutions in there, probably some things you can apply to your life. So just use it. Talk to it. I mean, again, there's all good. Claude is probably my favorite for most things. It seems to be right at the moment. They trade places all the time. We've used just about all of them, but start with one at least.
You gotta start somewhere. That's a great idea. It's amazing how often I find myself having those conversations of trying to figure something out, and then just somebody says, "Well, have you tried throwing that in Claude or Chat GPT or whatever it is that well, no." Right? Like it's still, even though we've been integrating it, it's still something that isn't quite fully a habit yet. Right? Like it takes time.
Yeah, it's we got this great tool that we don't use, so we're still putting the roof on with hammer and nails instead of a nail gun. It's like it's there. You have to remind yourself that it's there. Do things to to just know that it's there, and have a team that is willing to like do it with you. As far as like our team, I will create something, and I say, okay, look, this is not going to work perfect, but it's better, I think, than what we were doing. And try it on. Tell me what you feel. Tell me what you find, and then you guys start creating from it. You'll learn something. Tell me something I didn't know. So I think the people around you matter, because they're going to give you ideas, and they're gonna help give you energy around it. And it means your company is one that's focused on, we want to get better. We know this is going to be a tool that's used. So how do we utilize it now? And guys, 3 months from now, it's going to be better. And it's going to be, and it'll be things that it'll do that we can't even think about right now. So just continuing to experiment with it. It's continued to evolve every single iteration.
I love it. I feel like this is the tension that every advisor, entrepreneur, just every person, adult kind of in existence right now, if you're in some sort of service or whatever related industry, they're navigating this kind of the tension between, if you move too slow, you fall behind. If you move too fast, you risk getting it wrong at scale. And I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, and we talked a little about, it's pretty kind of plainly stated, the dangers of waiting too long. But I think some of the other ones are, if you move too fast without understanding, especially like in our industry, to where you could be giving bad advice at scale, or have an over reliance and compliance risk or data privacy. I guess, how do you approach that from a guardrail standpoint? And I think this actually feeds into the heartbeat of where we fit in the future, and how this makes an evolution versus a replacement theory.
I'm curious about your question, just so like maybe restate it. Is it this for the team of people, or for the lead advisor owner? Like, what are you thinking in regards of how we're framing guardrails around it?
Yeah, I would say, if you are an advisor listening to a show, whether you're a single person or you have a team, how are you making sure that you're not moving so fast and just delivering it as 100% gold in whatever it produces, and producing bad advice without verifying it, or having an over reliance on this thing to produce something without your oversight and input?
Yeah. So here's the way I do it. I look at it from this angle. Ultimately, everything that you're going to utilize for, whether I'm giving something to another team member, and I've used AI to help me accelerate my ability to do that, whether it is a reply to an email, whether it's creating executive summary, or something I'm creating that I think would be meaningful to talk about with the client, you don't get so sloppy that you don't read it for yourself, like in detail, to say, what did it actually say, right? What is this output actually doing? And I would always say, particularly if you're asking complicated questions like around tax code, of, hey, what about this? What about this? I would always then say, hey, cite your sources. Please cite your sources, or where that came from. So then I can go back to the actual source and see, was this from the IRS code exactly, and what did it actually say? Or was it from a guy hobbying on TikTok? Where did it come from? Because you never, yeah. Oh man, it was there's some of those are very good. Another knock on TikTok. Sometimes there's great stuff in there, but you got to ground it. Like don't just believe it because it's been created there. Because again, it's going to be not accurate all the time. Now, from a team standpoint, I think this is where you get the argument all the time. Well, how are how are somebody new into the business they're going to learn how to think for themselves. Um, and I certainly understand the thought there. I don't think that that's really the right application though, because what you're going to do is you still have to ask for the right information. You still have to check that it's there, and is this right and why is it right? And so don't just assume because it came out of there that this is right. Otherwise, we're going to see it and we're going to give you the adequate response to, hey, you're sloppy, you're dropping the ball here. Clearly you've responded to me here and I never mind that. I don't mind anybody using it to like put their thoughts together to email me. But then sometimes if they don't really thoroughly read it, sometimes it still won't make as much sense in the response. And I'm like, hey, I'd hope you never like do that and send that to a client because you just went off on this tangent that made no sense relevant to the argument. Does that answer your question? You have any other thoughts around that?
I think that's great. I think ultimately it's, again, AI is not replacing you. It's not replacing what you do. It's just helping you do what you do faster and better. I think that's the component. It's the tool that can really level you up, both from a capability, but also a capacity standpoint, at least how we're integrating it into our process. And then continuing to be that like final refinement point. If it can get us 80% of the way there and 20% of the time, great. And then we can use that last little bit to focus more on the development, the strategy, the curation of the final delivery of what that better higher end product is and service. So I would say if you're going to do one thing, or if you're going to give somebody advice that's listening to the show, they've heard us talk about it, maybe they've been on the fence, what's the one thing they need to do this week just to at least get started so that they don't end up in that left behind side of things?
I would learn to think out loud with AI. That's the first thing I would do. And what I mean by that is you're talking to yourself all day long anyway, just in your head, right? And so you have dreams, you have hopes, you have aspirations, you have things you wish you didn't have to do anymore. You wish things worked better, smoother. You have ways you do things that cost you time and energy that you'd prefer to do something else. So I would simply like hit the talk button on use Claude or chat, say, hey, I'm wanting to get good at AI and I understand how to best use this. Tell me a couple things about what you see. I am a financial advisor. I have a company this size. I'm married with these 2 kids. Here's what kind of a day in the life of me looks like. Here's what a week in life of me looks like. Here's what lights me up. Here's what I feel like I get excited about. Just talk. Just talk about your own story and say, where do you see that you think AI could actually have a useful impact and will be a good learning path for me so I don't feel like I'm behind the curve? And it's going to spit out a great answer. And it's probably going to give you some insights and you can keep talking to it and you can keep enhancing it and you actually begin to use the tool in there. So think out loud with AI. Don't just revert back to your muscle memory way of doing everything you do, but talk to it and just watch the outcomes, and then you'll get deeper and deeper.
I feel like a subtext or a subtask to that is if you don't already have time on your calendar to be learning and growing in that aspect from an educational standpoint, start there. Put some time on your calendar so that you can play around with it and start learning and then integrate that into your normal weekly routine, because it's just moving too fast. And 3 months is going to turn into 1 month. That's just the reality of how fast things are moving. So if this episode made you think, do us a favor, send it to one person who should hear it. And then also, we'd love to hear from you and what you're doing with AI. So if you could, send us a DM or a message. Let us know how you're integrating it, thoughts, questions that you have on it. We'd love to have your feedback and have some good conversation. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to From Busy to Rich. If something in today's episode sparked an idea or hit a nerve, don't keep it to yourself. Follow the show, share it with a friend, and let's keep building a community of advisors who want more. You can find more resources, tools, and free content at wesyounglive.com. We'll see you back here next time for more real conversations about building the life and business you really want.